Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brainwashed to be broke, the show where we expose all the lies, all the scripts, all the beliefs that we've been programmed since our young age, and what is truly possible in our lives. Today we are here with another really interesting guest. His name is Jason. He will also be able to introduce himself along the way of the podcast, but he is a 2x TEDx speaker, number one entrepreneurial best-selling author, and founder of the Exeter Club, a mastermind helping entrepreneurs doing 3+ millions in revenue building businesses that runs without them. So I'm pretty pumped to have him here. And when we start this conversation, usually like people are going straight up to like, hey, like tell like give us a little bit of context about who you are, what you are doing, like what is your business and so on. Like we can go back to that, right? I want to start this conversation a little bit differently because like I see like with all the success that you have accomplished until this point, I'm really curious what is the true driving source for you? Like what is the thing that drives you toward achieving these goals and results all like over and over and over again? Is it religious? Is it like hungry for freedom, or is it for like it's something like from the family side, like being great parent, or like providing for your family and so on?
So, what drives me to achieve is what you're asking about. And I
Yeah.
think that identifying what I have been gifted with by God is kind of the first step in understanding that. So, I understand that I've been given the gifts of teaching and leadership. And those are the two things that I think that my Father God has given me that I need to use in service of others. So, my goal and mission personally is to use my gifts of teaching and leadership to serve others. Now, I enjoy teaching, I enjoy leadership, and where I do that could be anywhere. I could own a cigar shop, I could own a motorcycle dealership, I could own a lighting company, or I could run a coaching company, which is what I happen to do now. And I've done a little bit of a lot of things over my years, but all I know is that I'm supposed to be using my gifts of teaching and leadership in service of others. And that's what drives me. Now, I can't do that for free because I've got to make money. I've got to have money to pay the bills and be able to
Bottom
live the
wall.
lifestyle. Yeah, I got to be able to do that. So I do it in a way that allows me to create an income that provides a lifestyle that I enjoy. And so what drives me is not only accomplishing the mission that I think God has given me, but is also what can I do to make a positive income, make positive income to then in turn make a positive impact in the world?
What does impact mean for you? Because you ended it this way, like impact is one of the it's a really strong word when it comes to like lots of people wants to build like huge impact in like, and for generations and so on. Like it has to, like we want to build the better place, like the world a better place and so on. That's literally why I'm so passionate about this type of topics and talking about it, because like I'm truly believe that we, based on like sharing our information, sharing our thoughts, we can literally do so, right? So what is it like? What is the impact for you mean actually, like truly?
So if a meteoroid comes into our atmosphere and strikes the Earth, no matter how big or small it might be, we know that it happened because of something it left behind, and we would refer to that as an impact. So there's a point at which it impacted the Earth, and there is evidence of that it changed things. And for me, that's what impact is. Impact is there's evidence that something happened and things are changed. Now, hopefully, the impact can be for the better. We're all making an impact. Sometimes it's for the worse. I mean, we've had people make negative impacts on us. We've had bad teachers, bad leaders. Hopefully not, but some of us have had bad parents, bad siblings, bad spouses, bad kids, and they all make an impact, good or bad. And so my lifelong goal, of course, is to leave a lasting legacy of and positive impact on this world. So what that means is everybody I come in contact with, I want to make sure that there is a change for the better. So whether it's working with my clients who are entrepreneurs trying to exit the daily operations of their business, am I helping them? Am I making an impact where there's a change for the better? So in the line of work that I do with the Exeter Club and the other, private advisement work that I do, I'm mainly working with entrepreneurs to exit their businesses, whether it's to sell it or to just, turn it over to someone else to run so that they don't have to run the operations. And by so doing that, I'm watching kids get their parents back, and I'm watching spouses get their spouse back, because entrepreneurship seems to steal so much of our time, which is a non-renewable resource. It's stealing the most precious thing we have, and we're in pursuit of freedom, and we end up building a golden cage. So my job is to help everybody unlock that cage and realize, you know what? This is not what you want. The gold is the lie. The thing that you think you're chasing is a lie. There's something behind that that you really want, and you're lying to yourself thinking that you want the gold.
Well, when you say like there is something behind even bigger than most of the people are seeing, what do you found out that is like for most of them like the big thing that they want actually? Why they starting a businesses, for example, and so on? What is it?
Well, I think, you know, humans are by nature selfish,
Hmm.
self-centered,
Yeah,
self-absorbed. We
yeah.
we are we want what we want, and we don't really care how that occur, what happens to get there. Now, we can temper that, we can pull it back a little bit, we can be aware of it, but that's just naturally who we are. Now, luckily, if you know Christ as I do, and lots of millions of other people do, he can change that, but that's naturally who we are. And so if you look at the entrepreneurial scene, you see that clearly. You see people chasing Lamborghinis, chasing yachts, chasing watches, chasing the cool thing. I mean, I swear, if I see another video of some well-to-do person on his YouTube channel getting in and out of his McLaren, walking up his steps into his jet, like, give me a flipping break. That's we we don't care about that. Everybody thinks they want that, but what they want is the lifestyle that allows it.
Mm.
And there's a big
Mhm.
difference there, because, I've got friends with very nice cars and yachts and airplanes and stuff like that. That's fine. Like, and we can go have fun in that. But you know what they really want? What they really want is the same thing anybody wants on their deathbed. They want more time with their friends and family, to spend time with their loved ones, and to make a difference in the world. That's what they want. Not anybody on their deathbed says, I should have brought that, I should have bought that new Bugatti, and I didn't
Mhm.
have enough watches in my collection. We're chasing vanity for what? For more
Mhm.
clicks, for more views, for people to admire us. And it's natural, right? I'm not immune to that either. Like, I like nice things. I have nice things. And I catch myself sometimes presenting those nice things in ways to hope somebody will be impressed with. But that's not what we want. What we want is the freedom to spend time as we wish.
Oh
And
yeah.
money can buy that, but we're chasing it the wrong way.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. Like when it comes to, coming like yeah, like people are searching for things or trying to get things that actually like make them look better, increase status, right? Like, oh my gosh, look, like this is like how great I am or like how smart I am and so on. And usually don't you think that it's coming from like this type of place of insecurities, like actually from the like from the past they probably even have like maybe even like they haven't been able to get those things in like that young age. So now when we have the money, we can finally have those things like and they pursuing those type of things. Haven't seen that too? Like have you or have you even experienced that? Because I do actually, I do sometimes, and I like freaking shit. Like I have to really look like why I really actually want that thing. Like it's because of me that I want it because it's gonna be like making me better, or like no like from outside, but like from inside. You know what I mean?
I think you asked her, is it about insecurities or people trying to cover that up? And I think possibly, and I'm not qualified as a psychologist or therapist to answer that, but I
Yeah,
do
that's
think
fair.
that probably has a lot. But you also said something about you didn't use this phrase, but pent up demand. I
Mhm.
grew up in a standard middle class home. Dad worked full time, mom
Same.
stay at home mom, and my brother and I never went without. Like, we always, there was always food, we always had clothes. We were not poor by any stretch of the imagination, but we also weren't wealthy. We didn't go on
Yeah.
extravagant vacations. Our vacations were camping, and that's fine. As a matter of fact, that's what I prefer today. I'm looking out my window right now. I can see my RV. We could take it all over the country. It's now part of who I am. But but when I started making money, I went from an unemployed school teacher to millionaire. And when I started making money, there was a lot of pent up demand. So what did I do? I went and bought the nice car. I started, going different places. We eat different foods, and I ended up buying this house that I thought it's my dream house, and we had all these nice things. And there's a pent up demand. So was I doing it to impress people? maybe, possibly, but I think the other part of it was I just had never had it, and I wanted to see
Mm.
what that life was like. If money were absolutely no object, I love motorcycles. I went on a motorcycle ride with a
Okay,
friend
yeah,
last
yeah.
weekend,
Uh-huh.
and we were sitting smoking cigars and talking at the end of the day, and I said, "All right, money's no object. What motorcycles would you have in your garage?" And he didn't really have an answer. He's like, "I don't know. I've never really thought about it." I'm like, I've thought about it. Here's what I'd buy, and I started listing the bikes I would buy, and and then you know, like think the same thing with cars. If money were no object, what cars? There's probably two or three that I'd get. A Porsche 911, you know, turbo convertible. That's what I want. That is not for me right now. My lifestyle doesn't permit it or allow it. Financially, it wouldn't make any sense for me to have that. But I want that. Is it to impress other people? Perhaps. Perhaps that's somewhere in the back end of my brain, but it's more about like I love cars. I love to drive fast, and I've always wanted a 911. And I have a Macan, you know, that's kind of the baby 911 with four doors on it. But I can go fast in that car, and I can also go to Home Depot. So that's pretty cool. But I didn't buy that car to impress people. That wasn't the primary purpose. Now, if it
Uh,
impresses people, that's a benefit. But I think, you know, there is some insecurities that I think the reason people are chasing these things. But I think it's also some pent up demand. And I think somewhere in there, it's just they absolutely have the taste for finer things. And that's
mhm.
I have pretty high standards, pretty high taste. And my wife she gets mad at me sometimes. She goes, "You have such incredibly high standards. It makes me mad." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's how I got you." You know, I got you because I had high standards. I wasn't going to settle for anything less. So I think there's a combination of all of it. But to go back to the root of what we're talking about, Adam, is this. Most people are chasing that crap because they think it will make them look a certain way to other people.
Oh yeah.
And like full stop. That's most people are doing that. And so you can take your phone right now and flip through Instagram. And if you're following the entrepreneur stuff like I do, it's Lambos and yachts and watches and pretty girls and people walking on beaches. What are like why? Why are we doing this? I'm not going to name the dude because I think it would be
Yeah.
improper to do so. But there's a guy who's a pretty famous guy. I've got his book on my shelf behind me, and you know he's done really well for himself. I don't know how much money he's worth, but it's a heck of a lot more than me. And
I believe
I went
so.
to his YouTube channel for the first time the other day. Never been to it, and
Mhm.
his sizzle reel was getting in and out of his McLaren, getting on his jet, talking from a yacht. Like it was crazy. Like, dude, we know you're good at what you do. Why are you flexing so hard?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, we don't care. Now, obviously, I don't want to see you getting out of a beat up Pinto. Like that's not what I want to see because that would make me, and that would be an indication that you don't know what you're doing. But why? Like, why are you trying to do that so hard, bro? The YouTube entrepreneur, bro. I just like I'm done. I can't do it.
Wait, yeah, that's so funny. Well, but that's so true also, like, when it comes to, like, if you it's really interesting what is happening right now, like, in the world. Like, with those, like, entrepreneurs are, like, trying like, it seems like they are trying to, get those things that they couldn't before, like they're trying to hone the ego. I don't know, it seems to me like that now, like it's full of the internet, and then you don't know even if that's real or not, right? Like some people, like probably like that person they've been talking about is pretty real, right? But like when it comes to like other people, they are trying to match those type of people, right? And then like you don't even know who you are actually dealing with, if it's actually true or not. But and it seems like that we lost the truth behind like what the business actually is all about, and it's all about serving people and like literally being the best version of yourself and helping others to become, better version of themselves or so. Like that's basically my purpose, right? I'm like literally like the only reason why I do what I do is basically make the world a better place, being connecting with other people and make their life better, right? And probably I'm guessing it's your stuff too, right? So, and like when I heard like I don't know your backstory, right? And when it comes to like you said something that you've been going from broke teacher. You've been teacher before? Okay, like I'm curious. Like how like was it a dream of yours, or was it something that you have like, that your parents like prepared for you, that type of journey, that they led you towards that, or why have you been like going for that route of like being a teacher in school probably or so?
So let me give you a little background story. So when I was in high school, I wanted to be a car designer. I've always liked cars my whole life. I've been infatuated
Yeah.
with cars. I mean, my dad had I think it was an old Volkswagen Beetle when I was a kid, and I just remember being
See.
infatuated with this
Yeah.
orange car
Uh-huh.
in the driveway. I was so little, and there's a picture of me standing in the front seat holding the steering wheel, just smiling. And so cars have always been a thing for me. And I started drawing cars young, and so I wanted to be an industrial designer. I wanted to design cars for GM or Ford or whomever.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. And in my junior year of high school, I got accepted to two art colleges for industrial design. So I was
Uh-huh.
really excited. But the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I was involved in church camp growing up. I've always followed Jesus. My parents have always had us involved in church. And so at that church camp that summer, I was a counselor at camp, and I just had this overwhelming sense of this is what I want to do for a living. Like, because I'm making a difference here. I'm not going to make a difference as a car designer the way that
Yeah.
I'm making a difference here. And so I came back home from camp that summer, and I told my parents, I said, I think I want to go into youth ministry. And they were supportive of that. They didn't, they didn't push or pull or anything. They're like, yeah, if that's what you want to do. So I denied the two opportunities to go to my art colleges. I ended up going to a local Christian university and got a degree in ministry and went straight into doing youth ministry work, which I did for the next 6 or 7 years. And then I also then I converted into doing preaching ministry, where I was actually the senior pastor or preacher, whatever you want to call it, for the next 6 or 7 years. So for about a little over a decade, 13 years or so, that's what I did. And I thought,
Mm.
at the time, I thought I would probably do that forever. And you don't make a lot of money in that industry. I think my last salary was like 45 grand or something like that. And then and until I decided, this is not what I want to do anymore. And I got to looking at, and there's a whole lot of reasons which I don't get into in your podcast because it bore your audience, but there's a whole lot of reasons I decided to leave ministry. I said, I can't do this anymore. So I went back to school, got a master's in education, and started teaching school. And that's when I fell in love with the craft of teaching. I loved teaching. I taught eighth grade American history, and it was very akin to what I did back in church camp. I'm
I
working
see.
with younger
Mm.
kids,
Mhm.
and we're having fun. I'm coaching some of the soccer, and I'm involved in clubs. And then in 2010, my principal came to me and said, "Hey, we need to talk." And I said, "What's up?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to have to cut two teaching positions in the building next year due to budget cuts, and you're one of them. You don't have tenure. You were the last guy hired, and that's how I have to make the decision." And I was the number one teacher in the county in my subject area. I was really good at my craft. It wasn't like they were getting rid of somebody that wasn't good. They were getting rid of somebody who loved their craft and wanted to be in it forever. But I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if God wanted that to happen, but after that, I made a decision. I don't want to ever have anybody else be in control of my income and the way that
Mhm.
that was. So I started a business, and within 3 years, we were doing over seven figures a year in revenue. And then by the eighth year, we did $1 million in profit. And that's when I truly understood what entrepreneurship was all about.
Okay, so what was the first thing that you've done, like when it comes to like when you been starting a the entrepreneurship journey? What was the first thing that you've been working on, like that you've been serving people with?
What was my first business? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
the first business, well, technically, the when I left teaching to start that business, that wasn't my first business. I'd actually started a website design company back in
yeah,
'95,
yeah.
and because
Okay,
the web was brand new, and I
yeah.
went to this conference and they were selling the idea of like you could be a web designer, and so I bought this course and I became a web designer, and I did that for less than a year. And it was so hard to convince people to get websites. I just said, this is stupid. And I was in ministry anyway. It was kind of a side gig. And I thought, so I left that alone. So I don't really consider that an entrepreneurial thing, but that was technically my first business. But when
Yeah.
I left teaching as an unemployed school teacher and started a business, I started a lighting company. We were doing LED retrofitting in
Interesting.
commercial
Okay.
buildings. That's the business I got started in.
Okay. Because like it seems like very steady line of like growth only. So I'm like really curious, like how what the things that you have to deal with, like when it comes to building the business, like from literally like being employee to become an entrepreneur, and like building the whole like the success that you accomplish. until now. Like, what was like the biggest struggles for you, for example, like what you had to go through, like from, because like probably I'm guessing like when you've been in like when you've been teaching people, like you've been the what is it called, like when you have basically you've been a pastor, you said, right? So when you do lots of speaking, you probably had this type of like one of the really great advantage when it comes to like speaking gigs and so on. You've been probably really good at like explaining things and such. Because for example, for me, this is one of the things that I'm struggling the most, because like I'm from different country basically. I live I'm originally from Czech Republic, right? Like and like I moved to England basically like 7 years ago to get really like actually like figure out the language also, like, and figure out the life, right? So like for you, when you can see, like, for example, from your perspective, like when you've been starting a business, so what was the first thing that it was like for you completely, like you've been struggling so much to get actually like that could like that was the biggest thing that stopped you from actually achieving the level, like, and going forward?
I could say confidently that as an entrepreneur running that company, I did pretty much everything wrong.
Yeah.
I went into a partnership early where it was structured completely
Okay.
wrong, and
Yeah.
then that led to a partnership divorce many years later. That really was the beginning of the end of that particular business. So partnerships, like I could teach a course on that, like and tell you how what not to do. I also made improper decisions on financial, making sure that financials were managed correctly. I did not know how to read a P&L and a balance sheet for most of the years of running that business. And that is insane that
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
nobody, including my partner, who at the time had sold businesses, and had been, nobody ever sat down and said, "Hey, man, you need to understand how to read a P&L. You need to understand what's on this document
Yeah.
because this is your lifeblood of what's going on in the company." I didn't understand that for the longest time. And then I think I made some really good decisions around people. Like I was
Okay.
always, and maybe that's my pastoral background and my teaching
Yeah.
background, like hiring people. Obviously, I made some bad decisions. There were some bad decisions in hiring people, but overall, I've always been, I think, pretty good at hiring people and taking care of people and
Okay.
stretching people to their maximum capacity so that they feel fulfilled and not underneath.
Have you been always looking for like team, like like putting people together to build like, team that's going to grow the business? Or have you been like some of the other people that are basically trying to build their business on their own, like literally, yeah, know every skills and and all of that, and then like maybe in the next level when we hit $1 million, we're gonna build a team that actually going to scale it to 10 and such.
Well, so the answer to that either or question is yes.
Okay.
I think I always understood that we should have a team, that I can't do
Hmm.
everything, that there needs to
Hmm.
be an administrative person, there needs to be a financial person, there needs to be a salesperson, there needs to be an operations person. And my first hire was an assistant, which I think was a good idea. And then my next hire was an operations person,
I
and then
see.
my next hire was a salesperson, and that's the way I started building the team. And then ultimately, I think that the highest employee count we ever had was in the high 30s. And when we had an electrical contracting company as well as the lighting company, who had a different division, and that brought on a whole nother level of, blue collar is very different than white collar hiring and managing those people. So I knew there always had to be a team. But that being said, I still made the business too much about me. And I
Hmm.
actually teach, and I'll take just a moment to kind of roll this
Sure.
out. But I teach this thing called the 3 tiers of entrepreneurship, and I write
Mhm.
about it in my books, and it's part of our methodology that we teach our clients. And if you can imagine a pyramid, just a triangle,
Yep.
and it's divided into 3 sections. The
Yep.
bottom section is the biggest. The middle section is kind of, it's somewhere in between, and the top section is the smallest. And there's 3 tiers. So tier one's at the bottom, tier two in the middle, tier three at the top, if you can imagine that for the listeners that are listening to this. Tier one entrepreneurship is all about being the owner operator. It's everything. You do everything. Everything revolves around you. You may have employees, but you do everything. So if you own an ice cream shop, for example, you're ordering the ice cream, you're scooping the ice cream, you're checking out the customers, you're sweeping the floor, you're taking out the trash, you're doing the books. You might have a helper, but you're the operator of the business. And that could happen in any business, not just an ice cream shop. And most entrepreneurs are owner operators for the entirety of their career. And the owner operator life is, for me, it's just a job. That's all it is. It is a job with a logo. And if that's what you want, you just need to admit it. But you're not an entrepreneur. You're an owner operator. It's not
Why do you think that people are like most of the time stuck in in that phase? Is
because
it because
they
yeah,
don't
go
know
ahead.
any different. Listen, they've had a job for before
Yeah.
becoming a
So
business
the
owner. They had a
employee
job.
mindset basically they basically brought into entrepreneurship, but they don't
Yeah.
understand the whole team building and the other
Yeah.
elements to actually build people.
That's
Yeah.
all they know. It's like, hey, I'm the hero. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work.
Yeah.
And they continue, and they do. And, but there are no billionaire owner operators.
Oh yeah.
Right? That doesn't happen.
That makes sense. Yeah.
No, you don't become a billionaire by being an owner operator. You might eke out $1 million in revenue as an owner operator, but you're not going
Yeah.
to eke out $1 million in profit as an owner operator. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Now, the second tier, move up one tier from owner operator. The owner operator is working in the business. The
Uh-huh.
second tier is owner manager. An owner manager is working on the business. He has a team now. There are SOPs in place. There's some systems. He's not scooping the ice cream himself, but he's probably still in charge of how it gets scooped and when it's ordered and how it's ordered and putting
Mhm.
everybody on the schedule and making sure that things are happening. The owner manager is still focused on himself or herself being the hero of the business. They're just not having to do everything. And in my lighting company, I built a multi-million dollar lighting company. We got up to $1 million in EBITDA, and I was an owner manager. Like I had a good
Mhm.
team, but everything still relied on me. All problems flowed back to me. All closed deals ultimately came back to me. I wasn't doing everything, but it all still came back to me. And in 2018, when we hit $1 million in EBITDA, I said, okay, let's sell the company. It's got $1 million in EBITDA. We do some, multiples on that, 4 or 5 multiples. This company's worth $4 or $5 million. Let's sell it. And my business coach said these 14 words that never left me. He said, the reason you want out is the same reason no one would want in.
Mhm.
And I had to think, well, what does that mean? He goes, you want out of this because you don't like being
Mhm.
the guy doing everything, and
Mhm.
that everything comes back to you. You're sick of this. You're ready to move on. Nobody's going to buy that. Nobody wants that. They want an asset that runs without the
Yeah.
heartbeat of one person being the
Yeah.
reliant, the thing everything relies on. And he was right, because in 2019, I went through that partnership divorce that I was referring to earlier. I went through that partnership divorce, and for the whole year, I was dealing with that crap. I wasn't paying attention to the business, and that year we lost nearly $1 million.
Wow.
Why? Because I wasn't available. I wasn't there. I
Mhm.
wasn't there to steer the ship. I wasn't there to answer the questions. I wasn't there to put out the fires. So that was a $2 million swing. Cost me $1 million to learn that lesson. So there's owner operators, there's owner managers. So owner operators are working in the business and they're doing everything. Owner manager, which is what I was working on the business, but it still relied on me. And if I was not there, business collapses. And I
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
perfect firsthand evidence that that happens. Now, let's talk about tier three. So, tier three is where we all want to go. It's where we should want to go, but very few go there. Less than 5% of entrepreneurs ever become tier three, which is owner investor. An
Mhm.
owner investor looks at their business as an asset and they're not worried about their own activity. They're looking at the business as an asset. It's an asset that should produce revenue, income, profit, whatever you want to call it, because of the business, not because of a single individual. And
Mhm.
so, where an owner operator works in the business, an owner manager works on the business, an owner investor works above the business. So, there's a whole step we got to get above the business where we are now looking at the business as an asset and we make sure that everything's in place. And there's only three things that we do as owner investors. This is it: set the vision, communicate the vision, and build the asset. That's it.
Mhm.
Everything else is taken by other people, but it's our job and sole job alone to set the vision for the company, to communicate that vision consistently to all stakeholders, and then third is to build that business as an asset that is sellable on its own. That's our job.
So I'm just curious, like when you started that lighting company, how long it took you to get into like the million you said in 8 years, you said, or something like that.
Well, a
Am I
million
correct?
profit took 8 years. We were at a million in revenue in year two.
In year two. So what did you do differently than most of the people that you are aware of that you've done, like that literally led you to so much growth, like right from the beginning? Like how long? Let me ask a better way. How long it took you to actually like get things moving since like you start a company? How long? Because like 2 years is pretty short period of time. I've literally been in the weeds for literally like 5 years to understand marketing, to understand funnel building, like to understand sales. I didn't have any clue how what is important inside of the business because I had no, business background. And literally, my parents been working corporate and they're still working, and like figuring it all alone and like having anyway. So like what was the thing that you've been like focusing the most at the beginning? Like I'm really curious about like how the heck you've been able to get like into 1 million of revenue in like second year.
I didn't do anything different. I don't think I think I just got out there and hustled and
Yep.
I was relentless and I was
Yeah.
consistent and I was, I was motivated. I had
Yeah.
to make money. I had to go do something. And I was off mission for a while personally. My mission is to use my gifts of teaching and leadership to serve others. And during those couple years, I was off mission. I was just absolutely head down. How do I make money? And not in the way like I want to be rich and have that Lamborghini. I just had to make money to survive because I was going.
Why you even haven't have like decided to go with lightning? That's interesting
Okay,
too.
so
To
that's a good question, and this has a lot to do with it. So in the year prior to having that conversation with my principal, where I wasn't going to be coming back the following school year, the year prior to that conversation, a friend of mine had come to me and said, "Hey, let's start a business." And I was not an entrepreneur at all, didn't even know how to spell the word, didn't know what it meant. And he said, "We'll start a business and we'll do this ethanol and hydrogen generator." It was crazy. Like I don't even understand how we did all that stuff. But I said, "Okay, sure." And I said, "But I don't want to quit teaching." He goes, "Well, it'll just be a part-time thing." So he and I did this thing. So we started this company, had no idea what the heck I was doing. And we built a hydrogen generator, we built ethanol stills, and we were selling very few parts and pieces, but it was kind of an interesting curiosity. Well,
yeah.
then when my principal and I had that conversation, I'm like, oh crap, I got to do something. I need to double down on this business thing. And so I looked at what we had been doing in ethanol and hydrogen. I said, this is not going to work. First of all, I don't know how to do it. I'm just the
Yeah.
grunt helping my partner. So we need to retool this business into something that will actually work. And so since it was in the energy field, like in the industry of energy, I said, why don't we do energy efficient lighting? And my partner said,
Mhm.
that's not a good idea. Let's not do it. I said, well, you know what? We're going to do it. And because I had put the money in, I said, so we're going to do it. So we split amicably, by the way. That first partner split was amicable. So he went his own way and I kept the company. And I said, I'm going to do LED lighting. And I don't know, the idea just came across my desk. I thought, okay, this is good. And I started making phone calls to distributors and manufacturers, trying to get, trying to get it. I started researching things in China, and I found a few manufacturers that believed in me and said, yeah, we'll sell lights to you. And so I was buying $20,000, $30,000 worth of lights, and I was storing in my shed in the backyard with no lock. And
Okay.
I was going to these industrial buildings and factories and eventually hospitals and trying to sell them on the idea of energy efficient lighting. Now, how did it grow so fast from, nothing to $1 million in revenue? Because our projects were expensive. So if you want to make a lot of money, you got to sell expensive things. And if you're a coach, you're not going to make tens of millions of dollars selling $2,500 products. It's not likely that that's going to happen. Now, do people do it? For sure. But the odds of that happening the probability is way low. So you've got to understand that if the probability is low, it's probably not you. You're not going to make tens of millions selling a $2,500 product. Our mastermind, is not 2,500 bucks. It's a lot more than that annually. But still, I'm not going to make millions of dollars just selling that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I was selling a project that was $1 million project or 2.3 million, like one of our first big projects was $2.3 million. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
how you do it. You can't
Mm-hmm.
sell a $10 thing and wonder why you're not rich. You got to
Yeah.
sell expensive things. And so, how did we grow that fast? We were selling expensive things. But the cool part is what it did is it because it was energy efficiency, it saved more money than it cost to do. So it was like, okay, why wouldn't I do this? And people did it.
Okay, so this is really interesting because like yeah, when you said like starting with high ticket is way better than like freaking low ticket and trying to, because like you are playing completely two different games, right? Because like high ticket you just need basically a couple of people to sell it to, and like you are hitting numbers. But when it comes to like low ticket, you need to like you need to have mass market offer or something that's going to go like super volume, right? Because like even Alex Hormoz is talking about it all the time. Like if you are starting a business, the easiest way to start is literally selling services, high ticket, and like because like you can sell 10, maybe like 10 clients, you can have retainers basically, and going with that, and you pretty much like you have to take care of your finances, like that literally covers, and maybe even like more than that. But if you're going to go like with low ticket stuff, right, it's like you have to have like so many like people going through, like think about it like Netflix, right? Something like so cheap, so high value, because there are so many like those artists and so on, like, and selling it for freaking like 16 or 15 bucks. I don't know how much it goes in the US, like Netflix. So you need a bunch of people to get in to actually make it even worth. So I really love that analogy that you brought, because just like this is even how I started, all like everything high ticket, right? But then like when it comes to I, when it comes to your traffic generation, did you do like door to door, or have you been like doing like cold calling, or what was the thing? What's the process to actually finding clients? I'm just curious.
And the lighting company?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, it was cold calling, 100%.
Cold calling.
Like
Okay.
you just calling people. Listen, I got
Isn't it brutal actually? Because like I know like cold calling is getting really tough. Like have you been already like having some experience with sales from previous like years, or have you hired somebody to do cold calling for you? I'm just
No, I
wondering.
did it all myself
Okay.
at the beginning. Now I hired people later, but um, I, in my years of ministry, about half of the years of ministry, I was also working part time selling life insurance and health insurance to small business owners.
Right.
So
Uh-huh.
I'd been through a lot of sales training. I'd learned how to sell, so I was really good at sales. And so when I chose to start this business, I thought, okay, I'm good at sales. Lighting sounds like a good opportunity. If it costs less than it produces in savings, I should be able to sell this no problem. So I was literally cold calling people. I would drive by a building, and if it was a big building, I would figure out their number. So Gap was, the clothing company. Gap was a customer of ours, and here's how they became a customer of ours. There in our town, there was a large Gap fulfillment center, three
Uh-huh.
buildings, total about 3 million square feet. There's no phone number for that facility, but I Googled it. I literally driving down the road one day, and I'm Googling on my phone at red lights, trying to find the number for that Gap fulfillment center in our town. And I was on like the sixth page of Google, and there was a number, and so I just clicked it, and I've called, and the person answered the phone. They literally what they said was IT, like that's how they answered the phone. So I had found an internal number to the IT department by accident. Well, not by accident because I was on purpose, but like I got that number, and so the guy says IT, and I said, "Hey man, this is going to sound like the weirdest question you've had all day, but I know you're a big building. I live here in the town. Like, how much is your electric bill every month?" And he hung up on me. And I redialed. I called back thinking there's probably 100 people in that IT department. I'll get somebody else. And I did.
that's a
I got another
that's a
person.
good approach.
I got another person. I found out later there were only two people in the IT department. I got the second guy. So the second guy answers the phone, and I said, "Hey, I was just talking to another dude. I think I got cut off." I said, "But like, I live here in town." I went through the whole thing, asked him that question. He goes, "Well, hang on a minute," and he puts me on hold for what seemed like forever. He comes back and says, I can't answer that question, but if you call this person, he gave me a lady's name and he gave me a phone number. She can probably help you. So
Mhm.
I called that lady, and then I broke the cardinal rule of sales calls. I left a voice message because she didn't answer the phone. And I thought, what I got to lose? So I left a voice message, and I did the same thing. Here's my name. I didn't say a company name. I said, I live in the town. I'm just curious. What's your electric bill? 2 weeks pass. I'd totally forgotten that I made the phone call. And I get a call from a guy. His name was Eric, and he said, "Hey, my name is Eric. I'm the operations director at the Gap facility, and I understand you had some questions about our electric bill." And I said, "Yeah." And then I told him why I was calling. I said, "Here's the deal. I got a company. This is what I do." Blah, blah. He goes, yeah, let's talk. And so I went in and talked to him, and then of course it didn't happen immediately, but over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, we ended up doing almost all of their distribution centers in North America, and it was multi-millions of dollars.
Get out of here. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, this is really cool, and the resilience behind it. Like basically, this is a literally raw example of like how human can, like, what can a human accomplish, like, when you actually take the courage and like just do the thing until it's gonna literally work, because like there is no such a thing as a failure until you give up. So I love that. Yeah, this is so cool. And like, okay, so when you basically, so you ended up selling the company, right? Or it was basic, or you said that there was a flop, and at the end that you
Yeah,
lost the money out of the company.
I exited. So let me tell you a little bit of the story. So in 2018, $1 million in EBITDA, tried to sell it, couldn't sell
Yeah.
it. 2019 went through the
So
partnership
it
thing.
was because of the way that it was set it up. So
Yeah, nobody
nobody
wanted
wanted
to
to
buy it
buy
because
it.
because it
Wow.
was on me and nobody
Yeah.
would pay me any money for it.
Right.
So I couldn't sell it. So I said, you know what? I got to figure a way not to be the center of the business. And so
Okay.
it took me about 18 months. I figured out how to get out. I put in some more processes, and I promoted some people to different roles in the business. I took up $80,000 out of my take home pay and divided it up into some director roles and started saying, hey, you're going to do this and you're going to. So I took a pay cut to make this happen. And then and then in 2020, by the end of 2020, I was able to step away practically from all daily operations. I was having monthly meetings with the team, and that's how I exited the company. And I write about that in my book, Exit Without Exiting.
Okay. Okay, so that's, I'm gonna literally refer that book for sure, because this is super, and it's all about the journey that you, how did you build the company until the end of like how you exited it.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. And then like, so how did you get into basically the coaching that what you are doing now? Like after the lighting company and so on, like that what led you to back to coaching and like start doing this type of services for other people, or like coaching?
So I had been coaching a few friends who owned businesses or were trying to
Uh-huh.
start businesses for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years prior to my
Right.
exit.
I see.
And it was not for money. I was just doing it as like a mentor friend type thing. Because people
Right.
would say, well, how did you do this, man? You become really successful. Show me how you did it. And so I would
Yeah.
I would share with them how I did it. So I had helped a couple of people start some companies and helped a guy sell a company. I just did a few things just because I was doing it. Well, then when I
Mhm.
exited, and like for 4 months, I don't like, who am I? I don't even know who I am
Yeah.
anymore because I'm not running this company. I went through an identity crisis. And so my business coach and mentor at the time, he was saying, look, man, you're a leader and a teacher. Like, why don't you just lean into that? People are asking, so do it. Like, charge people money to do this. And I was like, okay, I didn't really think about that. So the next person that contacted me, I'm like, okay, I'll coach you, but it's 1,500 bucks a month, and we'll meet every week in person for an hour. And I thought that nobody'd ever pay that much money to meet with me, and sure enough, they did. So people started paying that, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. And and of course, I would never do it for that amount of money now, but I did then because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I hired another coach, and he said, "Well, look, you probably should look at doing a mastermind or a group coaching or something." So I started doing group coaching, and I was doing, I think it was 3,500 bucks for like a 12-week course in a group
Mhm.
called the Exit Accelerator, and I was doing that on Zoom.
Right.
And then my coach said, "Let's do a mastermind. Why don't you do a mastermind?" And that's when the Exeter Club became a reality. So it was in October of
Right.
2021. I was having a dinner with my clients at a club here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, and I pitched the idea of the Exeter Club. I said, "Gentlemen, I'm going to be starting a mastermind now, and we'll have our first meeting in January, but it's going to be this much money. This is the outcome. This is what we want to do. Who wants in?"
Yeah.
And to my surprise, I had, I think, four people immediately sign up, and then two more later. And I thought, okay, this is a thing. So in 2022, the Exeter Club started its first meeting, and and I started picking up a few private advisement clients that I would do
Mhm.
just one-on-ones with. But I charge six figures for that. I don't do that inexpensively because it takes a lot of time and energy of mine, and I don't take very many clients on that. But I started doing some private advisement plus the Exeter Club, and it just morphed over the years. And now in the Exeter Club, it's not just me. We're six coaches in the program. We have an M&A attorney, an investment banker, a CPA, a wealth manager, and a mindset coach, and then me. And so all six of us work in conjunction with one another to help our clients go through the valuation process, make sure that their finances are in order, make sure that their personal wealth management's done, the taxes are right,
Awesome.
make sure
Uh-huh.
their mindset's right. And we go through that whole process and we put together an exiter plan for our clients and say, look, this is what you need to do to get to the goal you say you want, whether it's to not ever work in the business again but never sell it, or it's to get your business sold. We have three clients right now that are in various stages of getting their businesses sold. One is under LOI right now, so we're really excited
Mhm.
about him to get his business sold. Two others are in the early processes of getting the LOI prepared. So it's great. This is what I'm doing now, and I love
Have
it.
you are you working with specific with like businesses with specific criteria that they have to like have already, like, for example, the beginning phase dialed in, so they like are already making like cash flow positive and everything like that, and then like you are putting your framework to like grow them even like further away, like, further to towards the exit, or well, yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't work with startups. We're not
Yeah.
working. If you're
Mhm.
not doing at least a couple of $1 million in revenue,
Yeah.
this is not for you because you're still so early and trying to struggle up that like the stuff that we teach you is going to be so advanced, you're not going to be able to implement this stuff. So
Yeah.
these are for established businesses, and it's not necessarily about the revenue as much as it's about profitability. They got to have
Yeah.
profitability. They got to be able to make ends meet because if they come to
Sure.
me and they're barely making ends meet, well, first of all, you probably wouldn't be able to afford to join. And then
Yeah.
second, you're not gonna be able to afford to implement the strategies that we teach. I mean, there's a organizational chart that we teach about three
Mhm.
different levels of people you need in your organization to make sure the organization runs correctly and would look more attractive to a buyer. So that we try to get the business buyer ready. So that when you're ready to step away, a buyer can come in and look at this and go, no brainer, slam dunk, I'm in.
Right. I see. Do you have like some type of like program that literally like building those people for you? Like actually like getting them closer towards entering to your business and so on. Like I'm just curious because like it's like it would be like for me like the logical step, like when it comes to like as getting like growing the business as much as I possibly could. I would be like how to get those people into that stage that I can actually start like picking them up and helping them towards the exit.
Short answer, no. But
Okay.
we there's certainly an opportunity for that. I'm just trying to figure out
Have you been
how I
even
would
thinking
how I would
about it?
do
I'm
it.
just like curious. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, we've had a few people ask us. I mean, we have from time to time people ask, "Hey, I'm early. Can you help me?" And I'll say,
Yeah.
"Look, man, the best thing you do is read my book. Probably subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me, and you're going to pick up some stuff and start doing some things." But like, this is a true story. So I got a package yesterday, um, delivered I had been sitting in my office for a while and I just hadn't been there to pick it up. And I picked it up and I didn't know what it was. I didn't get home till late last night because I had an event. And I opened the package in the kitchen, and it's a bottle of bourbon, a box of cigars, and a 4-page typed letter from somebody who read my book.
That's
And I'm
awesome. I
only
love it.
saying this because it just happened. I wouldn't say this otherwise, but I just read this last night. And it's a dude who runs a company very much like what I used to run, and he's talking about like his journey, how he built the business, what's happening, his revenue
Right.
levels, and then how somebody screwed him. And he's like, and like how he found my book and now what he's doing to implement it. And he said, thank you so much for writing the book. So this is a guy that probably should be a client of mine for sure. But if he was earlier in the process, he got a lot of benefit out of the book, right? So you could get the benefit out of the book. Exit Without Exiting is the name of the book. You can go to Amazon and pick it up, or you can go to my website and pick it up as well.
Very cool. Well, I will for sure look at it because like I'm really curious about it because like I'm reading all the time and studying stuff because like I'm getting proving myself and more like in every area. Because like business is my life. Like that's where I live. And like when we are talking about like our lives, I want to ask you also like was it cars And motorbikes always for you like the big thing that you like are like like super like curious or excited, like a hobby pretty much, or is there like something like bigger than even that?
Like for personal leisure, so cars have always been my thing. I've always loved cars. I've had a few nice cars, the special cars, never any supercars or anything like that, but I have a few special and nice cars. I got into motorcycling about 20 years ago. I didn't ride
Right.
as a kid or even as a young adult. So I started riding about 20 years ago. And I did mostly cruising, like touring bikes and cruising, like big Harleys.
Right.
And then over the last couple of years, I've gotten into adventure riding. So I have two adventure
Uh-huh.
bikes now, and I also have a BMW touring bike. So my wife's like, "Why do you have three motorcycles?" I said, "Well, I think seven is the right number.
It's
I
a
think I
good
should have
question.
seven. I think I should have seven." But it's like they're different. Yeah, so I've got a Harley Pan America, and that's an adventure bike, but I don't ride that off road much at all because it's too heavy. But I could do some day rides and some touring on that bike because it's fun to cruise on. And then I've got a CF Moto Ibex 450, which is my adventure bike. I ride all the time, go in the dirt and ride in the woods and have a lot of fun. And the BMW, I took that on my trip last week. We go and ride through the mountains and go through the twisties, and it's super fast and it's a lot of fun, very comfortable. And so those like cars and motorcycles are the two things I just do for leisure. I love cars. I love motorcycles. And I joke about this. I make money while I'm riding a motorcycle, but I want to I want to figure out how to make money from riding a motorcycle. Like I haven't figured that out yet. If I could do that, that would be
It's a thing to work on. That's funny. Anyway, yeah, this is so cool. Like I'm just like have you been like have you been even like about like have you been doing some type of sports or anything like that before, like prior, like your when you've been like younger and so on, or like are you more this type of like, are you going to gym or so on, like do you like this type of thing, like even like physical exercise stuff, like being in shape and such to like
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, as a kid, I played baseball for 10 years. I played soccer for 4, played tennis for 1 year. As a kid, I was always in sports playing something. And
Right.
then as a younger adult, I played in volleyball, rec league volleyball and softball. I loved doing that. I played racquetball for probably every day for
Damn,
probably 3 or 4
holy
years.
smoke, you are a really active person, bro.
Yeah, well,
Like
that
what
was a long
the
time ago. That was a long time ago.
hell?
But today, I'm 50, I'm 51 years old. So at 51, I'm not doing all that stuff. But
Okay.
I started about 3, 4 years ago, started working out regularly, and I never ever did that in my entire life. So
Mhm.
now I have a pretty strict regimen. Every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I work out in the morning with some dumbbells and I do TRX straps, and then I
Yeah.
either walk or I ride my bicycle. And so today was a bicycle ride. So I went out and rode. I don't. It's not long. I do about 5.5 miles. So it's not a long ride, but it's a lot of. We live in a very hilly area, so it's a lot of
Right.
hills, and so I do that every morning. And I'm in the best shape I've been in my entire adult life. I'm healthy. I feel good. I feel like I look good.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah. You
I
look
don't.
you look good, so
Well, thank you.
yeah.
I don't play sports anymore. Like I haven't played racquetball in years. Um, I'm not a golfer. Like I got a motorcycle. I can't, once you discover motorcycles, why would you ever play golf again? I don't understand why people do that. So
Why
like
why is that comparison even there?
I can't imagine spending a Saturday on a golf course when I could be out riding a motorcycle. I don't understand. Like why would you want to do that? It doesn't
How does
compute.
it make you feel when you are riding motorcycle? Is it like something like special moment for you, like that you feel like free, like it's the freedom that
Yeah.
like you can feel or so?
It feels yeah, it's freedom. And I love speed. I love going really, really fast.
Okay.
Now I don't always do that on my
I can
motorcycle, but
see from the business side also.
yeah, well, but I love it. I love riding motorcycles because it's fun, just in general. But the camaraderie of riding motorcycles,
Yeah.
like going out last summer, there were 4 of us. We all loaded our bikes up on a trailer and drove 2 days. It took us 2 days to get to
Right.
Colorado, and we rode for a week, a little over a week and a half out in
Love
Colorado, and
it.
then drove back. And we did, I think, was it 3,000 miles or something like that? It was crazy. We did a lot of miles off road, all off road, going over all the high passes in the mountains. that type of camaraderie is so much fun. You don't get that in a lot of other places in life. So that's why I like motorcycles. And we're not nobody. I think the most expensive motorcycle in the whole bunch was maybe 17 grand. So it's
I
not
see.
an expensive sport.
Right.
I mean, you can spend a lot of money on it. My touring bike and the Harleys I used to have, they were a lot more expensive than that. And there was some camaraderie around that, but it was different. It was more
Yeah.
leisure. You hang out, and I don't drink beer, but like people would drink beers and just go from bar to bar and
You've
hang out.
never been drinking beer?
No, I
You
don't
don't
like.
like?
I've tried to like beer. I do not. I'm a whiskey and rum guy. I don't like beer at all. But
Yeah,
uh,
I I
but the
hate beer
leisure
too.
the leisure aspect of the motorcycles and the camaraderie is what I really enjoy about it. I
Yeah.
mean, if I had to ride motorcycles by myself forever, like never got to ride with somebody, I probably still would ride, but not much. It's
Uh,
being able to ride with other people is a lot of fun.
right. So you basically pick up. Are you usually traveling with your wife, basically? And do you have kids, or or you?
Yeah, I've got so my wife and I have been married for 31 years. We've got a
Oh,
26
congrats! That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah. Okay.
26-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter. My
Okay.
wife and I, for many years, would ride together. She'd ride with me. She doesn't ride as much anymore, which kind of bums me out because I really miss riding with her. So most of the time, it's just me and then going out with my guy friends, and we'll go ride.
Friends, right? Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, brother. That was a awesome interview. I love talking to about those type of topics and like hearing your story and what you are passionate about. And like before we end up end the conversation, I have like three rapid fire. But before I'm gonna get into those rapid fire. I want to also like see from your perspective, like from the business side of thing, like what you've been like doing everything until this point, like what is the next vision for you, like where are you heading with the business, and even like maybe like if with your personal life, do you have some another goal for buying a bet, like even some another bike or some a better car or something?
Yeah, I'm gonna have that 911 Turbo S convertible at some point, but not right now. But it's coming. More bikes, I'm sure, is going to happen. As a matter of fact, Saturday morning, I'm meeting some buddies, and we're going to a demo day. Triumph is having, or is it Ducati or Triumph? I can't remember. We're going to a demo day and riding a bunch of new motorcycles. My wife's like, "You're not coming home with a new motorcycle, are you?" I said, "No, I'm just going to go ride a few new ones and see what it's like." But I
Yeah.
think from a personal standpoint, we sold the big house that we lived in a few years ago, made a mint when we sold it, and we've regretted it ever since. And now we're trying to figure out how to get back
Ah,
into the forever home again. So we're kind of in an in between home now. We actually bought my grandparents' old house, and they passed away, so we're remodeling it a little bit, and we're making the best of what it is. But we want to buy another house at some point. We want to, I want
are
to.
you also inside of like real estate stuff, or you just like specifically businesses more?
No, we own a rental cabin over in the
Okay.
mountains. We have that. It's
Yep.
actually for sale right now. We're hoping to get that sold as soon as possible because
Mhm.
we got a lot of cash tied up in that. But we'd like to get the cash out of that and put that into a few other things and some
Makes
other
sense.
investments and help us buy another home. But from a business standpoint, I am still building the Exeter Club. We're still in growth mode, trying to build that up to there's a certain revenue number we're trying to, or profit really, but revenue number would lead to profit that we're trying to get to. And then I've got a few other things I'm working on the side. I've got an AI business that I'm working on right now that
Ooh,
hopefully will be launched
interesting.
later this year, and I think that's going to be a big game changer. But it's a lot. There's a lot to do with that one. So that's going to be my next big one. And then beyond that, I want to acquire businesses. I've got a
Really?
I got a mentor and coach, and I've attempted to buy two different motorcycle dealerships. Neither one went through. I've attempted to buy a car
Like a
dealership. That one
like
didn't.
renting, or like for rentals, or
No,
is
no,
it
no,
like
for sales, for
oh
sales.
for sale? Oh,
So
okay,
I
interesting.
attempted to buy those over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's just the deals fell through for one reason or the other. And but I'd love to own a cigar shop or an ice cream place or whatever. I just like the idea of having a brick and mortar business because I've never had one. All the business I've had,
Mm,
we've all been service business based businesses. So I'd like to have a brick and mortar business where I interact with customers on a daily
I see.
basis. And so that's probably a next chapter of mine, but not anytime really soon.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. So the rapid fire is like the first one would be one book that you like would recommend somebody who is like, I don't know, having a struggle exactly what you've been like going through when it comes to like, being the person that is actually like, I'm the person that running the business instead of, the business run itself, and I'm like literally managing the business. What would that be? Like, what type of book would you recommend to
Well,
somebody read?
I mean, it's self-serving, but I would read my book, Exit Without Exiting, because that's exactly what it deals with. If I have to recommend one that's not my book, I would recommend The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Ooh, okay, interesting. And the reason why is it like is that something that for example you wish to include inside of your book that is missing, like for example that you would like have there something like even more that would help people after years that you've wrote it?
Did you have you read The E-Myth? Do you know the book I'm talking
No,
about?
no, no, I haven't.
Okay,
No, no,
you
no.
got to go read it.
Okay,
It's a standard. It's like a business standard. You should definitely read it because
okay, I will do
the
that.
idea of working in the business and on the business, that whole idea, that's
Yeah.
where that book invented those terms. Like
Have
Michael
you have
Gerber,
you read have you read the book from Robert Kiyosaki? It was like I think E quadrant, like when he's talking about all the
cash
quadrants, like
cash flow
yeah,
quadrant. Yep.
cash flow quadrant. Yeah.
Cash Flow Quadrant, read that. Yeah, that's a great book too. Different, subject though. It has nothing to do with business specifically.
Okay.
It's more about cash and how you do it and being in the right quadrant so that you can make the money. But
Yeah. Yeah.
E Myth is a great book, and so he talks working in the business versus on the business, and then my book brings it to another level. It's working above the business.
Okay. Okay. So it's more like the book is more like when it comes to like team building, like what you need to have like those um what is it, like layers in the business, is that like literally managing the parts of the business, and
Yep.
so then you are the person above them that literally managing or not like managing either all of those people, or you have somebody who's managing even like the whole thing, and you just like looking around and like checking if everything is
You
working properly
you
and like going back yeah.
Yeah, your org chart should have your delivery team, which is the delivery people that are actually
Yeah.
serving clients. Your support squad is the next layer, and they're the ones doing all the admin and the back end stuff. And then the
Oh,
third layer is your A team, and your A team is the one
okay.
that you delegate decision making power to. They can make decisions. So you're managing the A team, and that's it. The A team
Oh,
manages
love it.
everything
I
else.
have the idea. Yeah, this is cool. Okay, so the next question is like, when if there would be an opportunity for you to like delete an advice from the internet that doesn't serve people at all and it's like completely BS, what would that be for you?
Hustle and grind is not the path to success.
Yeah,
You got people need
you
to
feel
understand that.
like
That's
you
the what I
experienced
said
it
was true,
and
but
something.
what
Yeah,
the internet is selling is that hustle and grind is the path to success.
yeah,
That is a lie. It does not lead to success. It leads to burnout. It leads to broken families. It leads to chasing gold that you don't actually want. Hustle and grind is not the way to do it. It is a season. It is
yeah.
not a lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yeah, this is so crucial. Like people jumping into businesses without even knowing what the fuck is going on. Like because they just they still keep having this type of mindset of like that you are the only person that is literally responsible for everything, and that's basically from the employee standpoint. Like when I've been the same way. Basically, I have to rewire myself, and probably you had maybe you've been experiencing it. I don't know, but like I'm guessing you had some of this type of season too. And the last one, if this would be your last interview you would ever done, what would be the message that you would love to leave behind?
Say that one more time.
If this would be your last interview you would ever done, what would be the message that you would leave behind you?
Well, I think as a follower of Christ, I would say that Christ is the answer for everything. And that is not a glib statement. So I would say that you need to give him some serious consideration. I mean, our entire dates system is based on the fact that he lived. And so that's probably somebody you should look into. So that would be the thing
Mm,
I'd say. From a business perspective, I would say, look, the point of business ownership is not to own the business. The point of business ownership is that the business provides you the financial resources to live the lifestyle that you want to live. And until you get that mindset shift, you're going to be trapped in the business that you own
mm,
because it owns you.
I love it. I have just like one last question based on because like based on curiosity. How big of a impact has Jesus in your life and in a business?
Well, it's everything. I mean, my life wouldn't be what it is today without Jesus in my life. I mean,
Mm,
the Jesus came to give us life abundantly, abundantly. And so, what does that mean? Well, it means I'm getting all the things that I have necessary. I've always got somebody to turn to. I've always got somebody to rely on. I've always got somebody leading, always somebody protecting, always somebody guarding. That doesn't mean I'm going to be free from turmoil, free from bad things, but I've got somebody that I can work through those things with. And there's eternal life that's going to be so sweet as well. So yeah, it's been the biggest impact on anything I've ever done. It is the answer to everything.
To have your core beliefs in like grounded in Jesus' words, like literally, like I mean, like when it comes to lots of people having struggle with like other people, like what other people think about and all of those type of things, right? Because like we are programmed this way like since our basically since the young age, right? Since the schooling system and so on. And like the way that I literally deal with it was that I literally like I don't know how to express this even because like this is for me like something that I've been really working on like recently, and like I've been like trying to get aligned as much as possible with God also, and studying God and how he did things and what he like, you know, studying Bible and so on, because he basically like when those things are happening and when we are like, you know, looking for other people like approval and all of those things, like what other people think, it's basically like Jesus already told you who you are because he like, and you probably, you know, you know what I'm talking about. So like have you ever I'm just like have you ever had like this type of period of time that you've been actually like caring what other people think about you, or you've been always like, you know, grinding in Jesus words that you know who you are and like what you should be thinking about yourself, and like, you know what I mean, like this type of things.
Mhm. Well, that's a very insightful question, and I
Mm,
would say that there's two answers to that. Do I care what other people think about me? And so so I know who I am in Christ, that I'm enough, that I'm his, I'm fine, I'm a child of the king. Like that, I 100% know that. But do I care about whatever the other people think? Yeah, way too much. I care way too much. And it's something that I've had to deal with for a long, long time. And I think part of that is one of the reasons I've gone through some of the crap that I've gone through in my life, is that I'm trying to live for an audience that I really shouldn't be living for, like the things, the people that I'm trying to impress, the things I'm trying to do. And I've had to temper that. I went through, we didn't get into it today and I don't want to get into it now, but like I went through a pretty traumatic experience at the end of 2023 and the beginning of 24. And that broke me to in such a way that I've had to reconsider everything I think about what I'm trying to position myself in the world.
mm,
Like I've had to
mhm,
completely reposition it. And it really took a lot of time sitting down with God and saying, look, like I need to understand more deeply who I am in your eyes as opposed to what I'm trying to be in front of other people. So I wouldn't say that I've become a guy who doesn't give one rip about what people think. I'm not there yet, but I'm much closer to that than I was 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, I still cared way too much, and that caused me a lot of heartache.
right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that, because like I'm just really curious, because like this is still something that I'm working on and like trying to understand, because like from the from the place that I basically came from is like we don't really talk, like we would never really talk about Jesus and what does it actually mean and what we should think about it and so on. And like I found the path when I started building a businesses, and then like okay, this is such a like interesting and really important thing, because I can see that lots of people and really successful people are super in line with God and like what they believe in and like how they lead their life, and so it's really interesting to me. Anyway, thank you so much, brother. That was amazing. Like I really enjoyed the conversation. You are great what you are doing, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do another episode, probably like dive a little bit deeper into a the Jesus side of thing, like, you know, the religious side, because like I would be really interested in that also. But other than that, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you guys in the next episode.